My name is Oka. I'm a financial advisor with Greatway Financials, and we're a financial brokerage company. So any of your registered investments, life insurance, you can just give me a call or hit me up, and we can talk more on it. So today we're going to be talking on the RRSP. And I know for a lot of people, they've seen and or they've heard about the RRSP. And today is just going to be a session to give you basic knowledge of what this RRSP is, what it can do, and the advantages and the disadvantages of the plan. So when you're trying to set it up, you have a basic knowledge of it, and you can ask more questions. And you can also ask questions here too. So what is the RRSP? The RRSP is just an acronym, and it stands for Registered Retirement Savings Plan. And this plan, even though you have savings there, it's not supposed to be like a savings account, like how you have a savings account in your bank, right? It's an investment account where you're putting in money or investments using the account to grow money over time, and you're supposed to be using it towards your retirement. And this account is a registered account, like I mentioned earlier, and it's a registered account because it's registered with the CRA to give Canadians or residents of Canada some tax advantages using the account as an investment, right? And these tax advantages are different with the different registered accounts. Like the last time we talked about the TFSAs, we talked about the tax advantages that the TFSA holds. So this same account too, because it's a registered account, it has its own type of tax advantages, and we're going to be looking more into it. Now, this account came into being in 1957. It's one of the oldest registered accounts we have out there, and it's been there for a long time. So a lot more people know about the RRSPs as compared to one like the TFSAs, right? And now this, just like the TFSA, it also has a yearly maximum contribution room, and it changed over time through the when its inception up to now. It has the contribution room has changed, and as of 2022, the contribution room is 18% of your previous year's income, up to a maximum of $29,210. So 18% of last year's income up to this maximum amount. So even if you have much more than the 29,000 to contribute into your plan, you cannot contribute because there are some restrictions to this particular account. And also, just like the TFSA, you can actually carry over contribution room. What I mean by carrying over contribution room is that you have a contribution room. Let's say for this year, you have a contribution room of $10,000, and you're able to just put in $5,000 this year. You're able to take the remaining $5,000 room that you did not pay up this year into next year, and say next year you have 12,000. So it's going to be 12,000 plus the 5,000 that you took from this year into the next year, making it 17,000 for next year. So what are the benefits of the RRSP? The RRSP has tax-free investment growth. So when you put in your investment into this account, whatever investment growth that investment has accrued over the years will not be subject to tax as long as that investment or the money is within the account. And this has the potential of making your money compound faster because you're not taking out tax at maybe at the end of the fiscal year, right? So the money keeps on compounding faster as long as the money is in that account. Now, another benefit of the RRSP is that your savings are protected from creditors. So, for example, somebody declares bankruptcy. Of course, the creditors or the people that he or she is owing want to get their monies back, and some other forms of investment might be subject to being seized and paying off the credit that the person owes. But the government in most of the provinces in Canada protects this particular plan, that the money that is inside this plan is protected against creditors. So creditors cannot lay claim to it. But it is good to note that any contribution made within that year of the person declaring bankruptcy is not protected. So if there's a you declare bankruptcy this year, any money you put into the plan in the year 2022 is not protected. So that money can actually be taken out and paid, and your creditor being paid. Another benefit of the RRSP is a plan called the home buyers plan. And this is usually for first home buyers, right? Where you can take out money out of this plan tax-free and use it as like a down payment or towards buying your first home. And these funds must be paid back within 15 years if you want it to remain tax-free. Now, and you're going to start paying back from the second year after you've taken out the funds. Now, this a lot of times people look at it and like, why am I paying it back? It's my money and all that. But if you want to take advantage of the tax benefit that this particular home buyers plan has to offer, you have to pay it back. If not, you get taxed. And looking at it, if you're going to buy your home, whether or not you take the money out of this plan, you're still going to have to put a down payment. And if you're not going to be taking out money from this plan to put a down payment, you're going to be taking out money after tax. That means you would have paid tax, and that's the money you're now going to use to put down as a down payment. But for this plan, if you put money into it, one of the advantages is that you're going to get a tax, it's going to be tax deductible. We're going to talk about that soon. So you get that advantage of tax deductible plan. And the money you've put into this plan will also start, if you invest it properly, it will also start accumulating interest. So you're now using money out of that plan, and that means the money is tax-free, and you're using interest of that tax-free money, tax-free too. And that's what you're going to use to put as a down payment for your first home, right? So it's kind of like saving money on both ends. Then another advantage of the RRSP is also towards education, and it's called the lifelong learning plan, where you can take out up to $20,000 from this plan tax-free, but you have to repay back within 10 years, right? And this plan, this $10,000 is tax-free, and you're using it towards your education. And this also, the same way that I explained the homeowners bias plan, you're taking out money that has grown tax-free to use towards education, even though you're going to have to pay back at the end of the day. If not, it gets taxed. But you've gotten the education using funds that are tax-free. Then the most popular advantage or most popular benefit that people usually talk about when they're talking about the RRSP is the tax deduction that people get back when they use the RRSP. And it's an awesome benefit because it helps you to reduce the amount of tax you pay within the year. And to talk more about that, I'm going to just play a short video, just about 2 minutes video, just to explain it further so you understand how this plan can actually help you pay less tax. So this is the video. Please let me know if you can hear.
Advertising on Google without ad protection? You have to try Clixies. Every time a competitor or bot clicks on your ad, your advertising budget.
How does making an RRSP
Please, can you hear? Can you let me know if you can hear this? Okay.
contribution lower your tax bill? Let's use a simple example to explain. Susie's salary works a typical 9-to-5 job where she earns $50,000 per year. If she lives in Saskatoon, her income tax that is deducted from her paycheck for the year is $10,195, according to Ernst & Young's handy online personal tax calculator. That leaves her with an after-tax income of $39,805. Her brother, Samwai's salary, works at the same company but earns a little bit less, $45,000 per year. The combined federal and provincial income tax deducted from his paycheck for the year is $8,445, leaving him with an after-tax income of $36,555. As you probably know, the more you make, the more tax you pay, all other things being equal. So here's why an RRSP contribution can generate a refund after you file your taxes. An allowable RRSP contribution can be deducted from your income. In other words, your income will be lower when calculating how much income tax you owe for the year. If your income is lower, your income taxes owing would be lower too. To make this clear, let's say that Susie's salary makes a $5,000 contribution to her RRSP. Since that amount can be deducted from her income subject to tax is $50,000 minus the $5,000 RRSP contribution for a new total of $45,000. As we've seen, the tax owing for someone with an income of $45,000 is $8,445. But remember, Susie had paid the $10,195 of income taxes owing for someone earning $50,000 over the course of the year off her paycheck. If we take what she's paid, $10,195, and subtract what she owes, $8,445, we get $1,750. So again, all other things being equal, Susie's salary will get a tax refund of $1,750 for making this $5,000 contribution to her RRSP. It's important to note that down the road, hopefully not until retirement, money taken out of an RRSP or RIF counts as income on your tax return and is subject to income tax at that time. Deferring having to pay tax on income until retirement can be advantageous if you expect to be in a lower tax bracket, but for lower income Canadians, that income can reduce income-tested benefits that may be available. Make sure to speak to a qualified financial advisor or accountant to see if RRSPs are a good idea for your particular situation.
So that is like the brief explanation of how the RRSP can actually reduce your tax that you pay year in and year out. So I don't know if anybody has any question at this point. I can take it, and you can unmute yourself if you have a question. Okay, then let's go on. Then now, what are the restrictions and disadvantages of an RRSP account? So you have to be an income earner for you to be able to have an account. Like I mentioned, the contribution room for the RRSP is 18% of your previous year's income. So if you're not earning an income, there's no room for you. You won't have any contribution room. And for people that are just landing or people that are started working this year, you have a contribution room by next year when you've filed in your tax for the year, and that's when your contribution room will be calculated. And you can actually find your contribution room on your CRA account. If after your taxes and you open up my CRA account, you actually see the contribution room that you have available to you. And then you have another restriction is that you have a maximum contribution room. So for people that want to save more, so if, for example, after calculating your 18%, you can only put in $3,000. Even if you have $10,000 to put into that account to invest with, you can't put it, because for any amount you put into the account above your contribution room, you start attracting a monthly penalty of 1% for the over contribution, and it keeps at that 1% every month until you take out that excess sum. And I think the RRSP, though they give an allowance of like $2,000 that's throughout the life of the plan. So if, for example, your room is $7,000, you can put in up to $9,000, and you won't start getting charged that penalty. But you have to be really careful so you don't over contribute. And then yes, like the video we just watched now talked about you having tax refund after you put in money to the RRSP. But at the end of the day, the RRSP is not a tax-free account. It's actually a tax-deferred account. So you would have to pay tax at the end of the day when you start withdrawing from the account. So at any point in time, it's your account, you can withdraw money at any point in time. But remember that you're going to be charged a tax at your marginal tax rate at that particular point in time. And why, like a lot of people might say, so why do I need to open an account if I'm going to be charged tax, right? So now this account is actually supposed to be an investment account towards retirement. And the thinking towards opening this, towards creating this account is that at retirement, you'll be at a lower tax bracket than when you're actively working. So some people might even get up to the point of maybe 35, 40, 45%, right? That's their tax bracket. But by the time you retire at the end of your working life, you'd see that if you're not earning anything, you see that your tax bracket is much lower, maybe the 20s and 30%. And so any amount of money you're taking out of that plan will now be charged at that lower, your tax will now be charged at that lower tax bracket. So that is why we advise clients that don't take out money from this account until retirement. But for some people that are like actively investing into businesses and all that, you might actually find out that you get to a point where even at retirement, when you're no longer doing like your active 9 to 5, but because of all the investments you've done over the years, that the income that you're getting at retirement might make you even at a higher tax bracket. That's why you have to talk to a financial advisor to actually see what your situation is and advise you appropriately, because there are different types of accounts you can use or different types of investments you can do or use to complement each other so that you get the best out of everything. Because for someone like in a very low income bracket for right now, I won't personally advise that person to use an RRSP, because if your income bracket is around 15%, for example, no matter how much you contribute into your RRSP, it won't really change what your tax bracket would be, because you're already in the lowest income bracket. So that's what all I'm just trying to say is that it's good that you sit with a financial advisor and discuss these things, and everybody's situation is different and they'll advise you appropriately. Now, another restriction or disadvantage of the RRSP account is that there's lots of contribution room with withdrawal. So for people that listen to the TFSA session we had a few weeks ago, you find out that for the TFSA, if you withdraw or you take out money from the TFSA, it automatically creates a room, a contribution room equivalent to the amount of money you took out of your TFSA. So what I mean is that if you have 10,000 in your TFSA, for example, and you take out 5,000, you withdraw $5,000 from your TFSA, you automatically create $5,000 room that you can contribute into the following year. So if the following year your TFSA room is 6,000, you'll have that 6,000 for that year, plus the room that was created when you took out the $5,000, making it $11,000. But for the RRSP, for any withdrawal you take, that is the end of it. You don't have any room to reinvest that money back into the plan. So now there's a contribution time frame for the RRSP. Even though you're supposed to contribute for within the year, you can still make contribution up to 60 days after the end of the calendar year. So that means that for 2022, I can still make contribution to account for 2022 up to 1st of March of next year. So you're up to 60 days after the end of the following year, you can still make contributions into your RRSP to account for what you have for the prior year. Then for withdrawals, the RRSP is not like the TFSA where you can just keep investing and investing for the rest of your life or the life of the TFSA, right? You must start making withdrawals at a point for the RRSP. So your RRSP reaches the maturity when you turn the 31st of December of the year you turn 71. So at this point, you must start making withdrawals out of your TFSA. Why? Because definitely the government has given you a long time to defer your tax. So I'm sure they want to start getting their tax back. So on the year you turn 71, on the 31st, you must start making withdrawals out of it. And there are a few ways you can make withdrawals out of it. And I have 3 here. So you can actually, the 3 different ways that you can actually take out money out of it has the advantages and disadvantages. So you can actually take a lump sum payment out of your RRSP plan. we don't really advise this except it's absolutely necessary. And this is because if you're taking out a lump sum payment, apart from the fact that you're going to be taxed at your marginal tax rate for that lump sum, you're going to actually be charged a withholding tax for that. So we don't really advise clients to take out a lump sum. Then, and one of the most popular way is to convert your RRSP into a RRIF. A RRIF is just an acronym for Registered Retirement Income Fund. So it's similar to the RRSP in that the money in that plan is invested. So it keeps on accumulating funds in the investment, right? When the investment keeps producing interest. But the difference is that you must make an annual withdrawal out of the plan. And there are a lot of calculation based on your age and all that will give you what your minimum withdrawal every year would be at that point in time. But this one, you don't have to pay a withholding tax for the income you get out of this plan, but you are still going to be taxed at your marginal tax rate for each year for the income you take out of the plan. And then some people purchase what is called an annuity. This is just like an investment that will give you a guaranteed income for life. And for this one, you don't have a withholding tax, but you may actually have to pay a tax on that's at your marginal tax rate. Then what are the eligibilities for you opening up an RRSP? You must be a Canadian resident for tax purposes and file income taxes in Canada. So what I mean by tax purposes is that even anybody that is eligible to pay tax, so students, foreign workers can get an RRSP as long as you're eligible to pay tax in Canada. So you mustn't be just a Canadian citizen or permanent resident for you to be able to open up an RRSP. And then you have to be 71 years old or younger to be eligible to open up your RRSP. And then you have to have an income. So at least the previous year's income to give you your contribution room for the next year. And then what kind of investments can you hold in an RRSP? Just like the TFSA, you can have cash, bonds, GIC stocks, equity, and segregated funds. Any of all these investments can be put in an RRSP. And like I mentioned initially, an RRSP is not a savings account. So even though you see cash there, it is not advisable that you just go and put in cash there and leave it there, because you'd be earning interest like a savings account, which is about 0.1 to less than 1% in most cases. So if you just leave your money there as a savings account, you might be earning something, but almost next to nothing, right? And the tax advantage that this plan can give to you would not really benefit you if you just leave your money in cash. And that's what another thing I want to remind people, for people that already have the RRSP, it's not just good enough for you knowing you have an RRSP. An RRSP is just an account. You have to be deliberate to know what kind of investments your financial advisor or your financial institution has put into that RRSP and monitor it, because this is a retirement plan. You don't want to forget about it thinking that, okay, you have money growing in there for you. And at the end of the day, maybe you're 50, 60, almost close to retirement, and you go and find out that your money has grown next to nothing. At that point, it will be too late. So it's better you are very conscious and very deliberate when it comes to investing towards your future. And then where can you set up an RRSP? You can set up an RRSP in any financial institution, like the banks, with insurance company, which is what I represent. I represent insurance companies, then trading platforms like Wealthsimple and the rest, and even in credit union too. And then what are my takeaways? We've round up. This is my last slide. My takeaways is that you should know that just like I mentioned, an RRSP in itself is not an investment. Because sometimes you ask people, do you have an investment? Yes, I have an RRSP, or they'll tell you I have a TFSA. That is not an investment. You have to be deliberate. It's just an account that you can invest through. Make sure you know what is going into your account. Make sure you monitor the progress of your account. Ask questions. Ask your advisor. Even in the banks, I think you should have your advisor's number there. Call them and ask them, and make sure your account is really doing well. And then another takeaway for me is that you should not use your RRSP as a savings account. Okay, this is just like buttressing my first point. And then make sure you do not over contribute, because no matter how well your RRSP is doing, getting a 1% charge on your RRSP will eat up all your interest in no time. So make sure you don't over contribute. And the last takeaway is that you can actually have more than one RRSP. I know for some people that are working that have employers that match their RRSP, they think that you can only have one RRSP. No, you can have more than one RRSP. But the trick is that just make sure that any contribution that is going into all your RRSP in addition together should be equal to your contribution room, so that you don't end up in a point where you've over contributed. So this is the end of my presentation. And like I always like to say, it is not what you know, it is what you do with what you know that matters. So I think I have some chat here. Let me look at it. But if you have anything to say, any question, please unmute yourself and ask away. Okay. Okay, Tolu Bopek asks that, is it compulsory to meet up with the yearly target of 18%? No, that's just it's the maximum, right? Anyone that is lower. So if you have your income is $100,000, for example, 18% of your 100,000 is $18,000. That means that that's the maximum you can put into the plan. $18,000. But if you want to put 1,000, it's your plan. If you want to put 5,000, it's your plan. It's just that that's the maximum. You cannot put in anything above 18%. Is there any penalty for not meeting up no, like I mentioned, it's not, you mustn't meet up to the target. Where the penalty comes in is when you over contribute. So instead of putting 18,000 and you put 21,000, that's when the 1% penalty gets levied on your account. Okay, well, you're asking what is the interest rate on funds put in an RRSP. So it depends on what you want to put in your RRSP. Like if you want to put in a GIC, which is guaranteed income certificate, right? That one, the institutions can tell you, okay, we can guarantee you that your funds are going to be doing so and so percent. But for anything that has a guarantee, it's usually very minimal. So I don't know, for different institutions have different rates. So you might have to go to the institution you want to go. But for other forms of investments, if you're putting in bonds, if you're putting in shares and all that, it would have to do with how the market is going. If the market is really doing very well, of course, your money will grow very well. If the market, just like now that the market is really not so good, funds might not be so good. So it depends on what you want to put into your RRSP. So a GIC, there can be a guarantee and you know exactly what it is, but usually it's very small. The interest rate is very small. While for other ones, it depends on what the market is doing. Thank you so much, Tolu, for those questions. Are there any other questions? Okay, so let me stop sharing.